Welcome everybody back to I Mix What I Like right here at I Mix What I Like. Again, I'm Jared Ball. Happy to be your host. Big shout out to leaders of a beautiful struggle who I hope you are all supporting and watching their podcast over there on Black Liberation Media and Search for Black Power. And to whom I owe the credit for putting me in touch with our guests for this episode. Um, and to talk a little bit about a new effort, a legal effort, a law effort, a law trying to be passed here in Maryland, uh, uh, summarized as Granny's Law. So everybody, please do like, share, subscribe, support the Patreon or any and the platform in any way you think you can. Please leave a comment. And with that, let me welcome both. Jennifer Johnson and John Morris to the show. Good morning and greetings to you both.
Good
Good
Welcome.
morning.
morning.
Before we get started, if you wouldn't mind just telling us a little bit about who you both are and what brings you to this issue, and then let's talk about this law, which admittedly, though I am a Maryland resident, I was not paying attention to, but I'm very much interested in. So again, welcome, and if you would just tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Sure. My name is Jennifer Johnson, and I am the granddaughter of Granny, the woman who this legislation is being uh, sought for in the memory of and the legacy of. I am also the founder of Friends of St. Peter's Cemetery, a cemetery that started in 1851 in West Baltimore that has home to thousands of African Americans in unmarked graves. And I'm also the president of Saved It Incorporated, a nonprofit that is doing work to save our history. Um, what happened to me needs to not happen to anyone else ever again in our state. My grandmother had a will. Her will was very specific. It left me in charge of her affairs. And instead of following her will, the courts forced me into jail, allowed two attorneys to build tons of money against my grandmother's will. I could not get out of jail unless I gave them all of her information. And I've never been charged. I never committed a crime other than being female, African American, and having money. The charities in question are the American Heart Association, the Alliance for the Mentally Ill, the American Cancer Society, and the Alzheimer's Association that were represented by one lawyer and basically snatched my grandmother's money and refused to use it to benefit African Americans. And we are already at a disproportionate need for help in these areas. Granny's Law will twist the system into its proper alignment. And to give you historical context, the existing law has its root in basically white men that were wealthy landowners and things like that from years ago, and leaving their estates in trusts where females and African Americans were considered property. So to undo that historical context, Granny's Law will actually flip the system in the right direction, such that it's really benefiting those that the system in that the will is intended to help, but the system has started overriding, creating a legal framework by which people's wills are not being followed, and the system is overriding them, such that lawyers are making tons of money, and those that actually need help, caregivers, those that are battling health disparities, and others are not getting the help that they need.
All right, thank you very much. I just wanted to show the bill there a little bit. And Mr. Morris, did you want to say anything, introduce
Sure,
yourself at all? Yes,
sure.
sir.
Just very briefly, I am a lawyer, and I've been helping uh, Jennifer not as her lawyer, but just as somebody who has familiarity with the system to try to help her navigate her way to fix this situation and to make it so that nobody else has to go through what she went through.
Yeah, so I mean, I was trying to look into this a little bit in advance of this discussion, I admit, just there's not a lot being said about it. There hasn't been apparently too much media coverage, unfortunately, that I was able to find at least, and I did see that in the Maryland House of Representatives that there was support among the Democrats to get it passed on their side, but apparently the Senate side is resistant. And I know you've laid out your story, your harrowing story, but for those like myself who struggle to follow some of the legal details, what is it that those, for instance, in the Maryland Senate, and those who want to deny the bill, what is their argument in saying that we don't need something like this? How are they what narrative are they using to say that we don't need a granny's law, and that the issue that you, Jennifer, and others are concerned about is just not worthy of legislative intervention?
Well, I think in many ways they are following the position of the State Bar Association, in which I don't think they fully understand the situation that Jennifer finds herself in, and are overgeneralizing on the fiction that because the system works for them, it works well for everybody.
Mm.
And there's an underlying problem in that if what your loved one wants to do is not something that those who sit in the orphans courts are used to administering, unless it's spelled out to a specificity that it can't be denied, rather, they read the will in a way that ultimately undermines the intention of the loved one. And it puts people like Jennifer, and she's not alone, in a position where she has to fight the courts to effectuate her loved one's legacy. So here, for instance, Jennifer's grandmother saw her son and other relatives have problems with cancer, with heart disease, with mental health, and Alzheimer's. And she wanted to benefit those charities with the expectation that her gift would be used to help the special situation of people who look like her, to address those health disparities that the General Assembly has already acknowledged as a matter of public policy in Maryland. That was her prevailing assumption in making the gift that she made. That's not how the court proceeded. A gift was made, and only half the story was told. And the story that wasn't told was the background of Granny, what she fought for, what she sought to accomplish in her life. And so what the court did in reading the will without hearing the rest of the story, it opened her estate to these charities who come in with their own agenda, which may not have aligned with Granny's, and use Granny's money to do whatever they want to do. What this bill would do, this legislation would do, is enable a personal representative to speak to the life story of the decedent and say, this isn't what she wanted given how she lived. So in many ways, the way the law currently operates is to make a mockery of someone's living after they're dead. And it's that injustice that this legislation is intended to fix, to give the deceased a voice in the personal representative after their passing, to be able to tell the orphans court, that's not what I wanted. Don't do this.
And I think it goes just a little bit deeper, especially in my case. When I was thrown in jail, my best friend, Kimberly Ringgold, was dying of cancer. I begged the court not to do this, and instead they did it. And I went to jail while my best friend was dying of cancer. The very reason why my grandmother was giving this money to the American Cancer Society to prevent and help people that look just like my best friend from losing their lives to cancer. If you look at the statistics, African Americans are disproportionately affected by cancer, Alzheimer's, mental illness, and cardiovascular disease. We lost my father to a massive heart attack out of nowhere. My grandmother herself had bouts with cancer. My great-grandmother, Alzheimer's, and my grandmother and many others in my family worked in the juvenile justice system for the state of Maryland. So they saw firsthand the disproportionate effects of mental health that many of us as African Americans suffer because of institutional racism and all other kinds of traumas that we have had to face. My grandmother did not give this money to these charities for it to be used for anything other than to benefit African Americans, and they are supposed to already have targeted programs in place for us. And instead, the charities refused. The judge sided with them, said I was not fit to be my grandmother's personal representative, and threw me in jail. I've never been in trouble a day in my life.
And what was the charge?
Nothing. I've not been charged with anything.
They put you in
Never
jail
have
with
been charged
not
with
even
anything.
the pretense of a charge.
The pretense was contempt.
Mm-hmm.
But let's understand this. In my grandmother's will, there is a specific line item, and I will read it to you, just so I get it 100% correct. It specifically states, and this is in many people's wills, so this is not unique to my grandmother. In addition to the powers conferred upon personal representatives and trustees by law, my personal representative and trustee, if any or any duly appointed successor, shall have authority without adjudication, order, or direction of the court. And it lists about 5 to 7 things that you can do. The last thing that it says is line item F, to do any and all things necessary and proper to complete the administration of my estate, all as fully as I could do if living. That means without any direction of the court, I should have been able to handle my grandmother's affairs. And I was doing so when they threw me in jail and then did what they wanted to do with her money, leaving me in a very powerless position to do anything other than seek justice on the legislative side of things. And I will go further and say that I did pursue, and I am still pursuing, a police matter with them. I did file a police incident report against the judge and the lawyers involved. Now imagine me as a citizen having to be so courageous to file a police incident against a judge and lawyers. It's a hate crime. And whether I'm black, white, or other, it should never have happened. The language in the will does not give them the right to override or do anything that they did to me. They look at this as boilerplate language that they can toss to the side and ignore. And it's not to be ignored. If they had not done what they did, They would not have been able to basically steal, under court authority, my grandmother's money. They would not have been able to use these gifts to charity to further harm African Americans. And they would not have caused the damage that they caused to me, my family, and my loved ones, having to deal with the trauma from this situation.
So the money your grandmother was intending for you to be in control over, the estate itself, the courts gave over it to the American Cancer Society. And
Apparently, I
where
will be
in
honest and say I don't know what they've done with her affairs.
Hmm.
They took control of everything, and basically the last correspondence I got from them says that if I don't cash this little bit of check that they gave me after they stole all her money, then it will go to the state effective March 2026. This is not anything my grandmother ever envisioned.
So, but where in your grandmother's will are they using? I'm still missing. I'm not. I'm just.
They're not
Forgive
missing it,
me.
sir. It's not there. So this is what they do. They, and their argument, even in front of the legislator, was that we're using the four corners of her grandmother's will to do what her grandmother wanted done. Nowhere in my grandmother's will does it say you can take control of her money, you can do anything that you want to do with the money, and that you can use a judge and lawyers to override her will. In fact, what it says, and I will go back to it yet again, because I think it's very important that we hone in on what the will actually says. It says, in addition to the powers conferred upon personal representatives and trustees by law, my personal representative and trustee, if any or any duly appointed successor, shall have authority without adjudication, order, or direction of the court. And it lists several things. The thing that a lot of people don't understand is that the will, and most people's wills, are very easy to execute. Where it becomes complicated is that people say, oh no, you need a lawyer for that. And then you go spend thousands of dollars for the lawyer to bill you to do something you could have done for free. I give an example. It says on here, to assign or transfer certificates of stocks, bonds, and other securities. When you are the person who is executing your loved one's will, 9 times out of 10, y'all normally have the same family name. But even if you don't, on their stocks, bonds, and certificates, you are somewhere probably mentioned on those documents. And when you call to have those things transferred to you upon their death, it is a very seamless and free process. However, if you get a lawyer to do this for you, they're going to bill you their hourly rate. Some are about $125 an hour, but they go up as high as $895 an hour, if not further. And so when they go to do the same thing that you could have done for free, they're billing you at their bill rate to get it done. And these companies that are the stocks, bonds, and certificate holders don't care about that lawyer's office. They care about you as the individual and whoever is named as the person to receive that stock, bond, or certificate, and you can process those things for free. I did it, and I did it well, and so I can tell you that is the process. But lawyers need to feel important and as if they are helping you when they're really not. Not in these instances. And, lawyers have a place. But in most executions of wills, they are overinflating their pricing, and they are causing more harm than good. And in most situations, they're taking advantage of people who are mourning the loss of a loved one. I will give credit to my first lawyer who was involved with this, Alex Housley of Stouffer Legal. When I brought the matter to his attention, when I protested against his billing, him and his higher ups at his company in Towson, Maryland, gave me all of my fees back immediately. So thank you, Alex Housley. But what the courts did, instead of listening to me and saying no more lawyers, and for me standing up for what my grandmother wanted, they refused to hear my voice. Put 2 lawyers, not one, but 2 on the case, billing at a rate of $295 an hour, and threw me in jail at probably one of the lowest points of my life because I was losing my best friend from cancer. This, again, is not justice. It is not anything my family wanted, anything I wanted, and it's certainly not in the 4 corners of my grandmother's will. The thing that we all need to look at, to do any and all things necessary and proper to complete the administration of my estate, all as fully as I could do if living. My grandmother never called the police on me, never had reason to in her life. But they sent police to my home. They further arrested me in court. And then they called a hearing. And again, this time I could either come into court or I could be in my home. But they, at that court proceeding, that final one, demonized my grandmother's will against me, using language that is not in her will, and took her money to do the exact opposite of what she would have ever wanted. I want to just take a moment and show a book called Breaking the Color Barrier. The U.S. Naval Academy's first Black midshipman and the struggle for racial equality. My grandmother is featured in this book. A woman does not get featured in a book like this and then have her will do something to harm African Americans. And that's exactly what the system did with my grandmother's money. That's not what she wanted. Another book to just show you the place that my family legacies come from. It's called The Other Annapolis. It talks about many African Americans and all the work that they have done in the city of Annapolis to make it a Black community that is thriving and that is proud and goes back for generations. This is where my family comes from. Not what the courts did, not anything that is, what they imagine to be, but this is my family's legacy. And yet, one more book. And this one, I think, brings it to the current day, the current time, and the struggle that I face. It's called Justice Served. And it says, How I've Represented Myself to Victory. Stepping into Power, a step-by-step guide to navigating the probate system with confidence and success. And it's by an African-American doctor who's now in Maryland, but she faced the same or very similar situation in Texas when she went to finalize her parents' estate. This is not a unique situation. It is one that needs change, but people, until you walk through the situation, don't realize the horrors that others are facing in the probate system and how demonic, wrong, and just outright backwards the system is.
Wow. Definitely thank you for all of that. So in addition to having folks, and I'll put links to all of this, and including the Senate bill, which I think is still coming up for vote in the show description. In addition to having people follow that, what else would you encourage or want people to be encouraged to do to support what your individual struggle and the struggle that fight represents?
Reach out to your local legislators. Encourage them, whether they're on the judicial proceedings or judiciary committee or any other committee within the Maryland State Legislature, to support Granny's Law. I am very grateful to have some wonderful people last session and this session that are supporters of this legislation. It was led last session in the House by Delegate Sandy Rosenberg and in the Senate by Senator Attar. This session, it is being led by Delegate Stinnett, who is also of the 41st Legislative District, where Delegate Rosenberg is as well. But Delegate Sean Stinnett is actually on the Judiciary Committee. All of the 41st, that means Senator Attar, Delegate Rosenberg, Delegate Ruff, Delegate Stinnett, and I don't think I'm forgetting anybody else. I apologize if I am. Are all supportive of this legislation. My grandmother spent most of her adult life in the 41st, and they are all rooting for the success of this legislation. I have many others that are not in the 41st. Delegate Cherie Sample Hughes, who's on the Eastern Shore, who is supporting this legislation. Senator Corey McCray, who is East Side Baltimore, who's supporting the legislation. Thank you so much, Senator McCray. Senator Lamb, who is out of Howard County, who is one of only 2 doctors that we actually have in the Maryland State Legislature. I have in my own district, District 10 of Baltimore County, I have Delegate Jennifer White Holland, who has been supportive and a champion from day one. I thank you dearly for your support. Delegate N. Scott Phillips has also joined, and I am expecting many more to join the cause. Delegate Pena Melnick, who is one of those that is a champion for health disparity issues, is also championing this legislation. There are numerous people, and I apologize if I forgot anybody off the top of my head, but I thank you all dearly for being co-sponsors. But that is the biggest thing that anybody can do to help this, is to actually reach out to your legislators and encourage them to sponsor or co-sponsor and support in any way they can Granny's Law. For the 2025 session, it was House Bill 0868 and Senate Bill 1029, I believe. But they will get new numbers this legislative session. But if they say Granny's Law and it's dealing with estates and trust matters, that is the best way for legislators to be able to easily find the legislation and support it. Additionally, if anybody wants to be a speaker and give testimony, they can reach out to me directly by email. The best email to use for me is saved, SAVED, incorporated.com. at gmail.com, and they can reach me that way. There will also be a website launched in the future, but that is not up and running yet.
Well, you can send that to me when it is, and I'll add it to the show description where they'll find all your contact and information that you've sent about this issue. Mr. Morris, is there anything else that you would want to?
I was thinking of that. You had asked earlier about the bar's objection, and I think it's a common objection that's made to a situation that needs change, which is an establishment fear that changing the way people are used to doing things will cause chaos. That is what the establishment said long ago when people wanted to desegregate all sorts of institutions. We're used to doing it this way, it'll cause chaos. This is a law that will empower personal representatives to enable the decedent to speak their intention. The bar sees that as a threat to good order. It's also a path to justice. And that's, I think, part of the choice that's presented. An established desire to have things as they're used to having, and a door that's open to enabling other people who aren't used to being heard to be heard.
Listen, thank you both very much for sharing this with us, and for the fight that you're waging. Please do feel free to reach back out if I and we can ever be of any more support. Definitely want to thank again Leaders of a Beautiful Struggle for their steadfast work in and around Baltimore and Maryland and beyond. And best of luck to you going forward in your personal issues, and for sort of trailblazing for the rest of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, peace only if you're willing to fight for it, as Fred Hampton used to say. And we'll catch you next time around here with much more.
And what do you sacrifice?
Calm, kindness, kinship, love. I've given up all chance at inner peace. I made my mind a sunless space. I share my dreams with ghosts. I wake up every day to an equation I wrote 15 years ago for which there's only one conclusion. I'm damned for what I do. My anger, my ego, my unwillingness to yield, my eagerness to fight, that set me on a path from which there's no escape. I yearn to be a savior against injustice without contemplating the cost, and by the time I look down, there's no longer any ground beneath my feet. What is my sacrifice? I'm condemned to use the tools of my enemy to defeat them. I burn my decency for someone else's future. I burn my life to make a sunrise that I know I'll never see. Now, the ego that started this fight will never have a mirror or an audience or the light of gratitude. So what do I sacrifice? Everything, 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 everything.
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.